That's strange. Okay. So after adding a name or several names, we have to choose one of them or the generally preferred name. The interesting thing that you can do for convenience is the add name procedure is fairly complex in order to be like standard. The default way that you can do this if you want to add a bunch of names at once is there add name list button. Name list. You know, it appears where you can enter a new line separated list of names. For instance, if I wanted to import aspirin and Levac and Tylenol, I could just put in as a line separated thing, or the file that was already saved in that format. If I click load or import, I will have to give it some reference that is applied to all of these names. So in this case, I just added all these names. As you see on the slide, it will tell you which ones are duplicates, which ones are result of structure, and so on. In this case, I don't actually care about any of these names, so I remove them, and then I'll just go forward. Now that I put in a name, I can go forward. I do the same procedure now for code. So now codes, and codes are slightly different than names. Codes have a deeper meaning behind them. So codes might be chemical database codes. They might be WHO ATC codes. They might be things of that nature. Things that have kind of some more rigorous database definition. Just as I do with names, if I click the Add Code button, it's here where I can enter information about the code. We have a list of code systems behind the scenes are defined as JSON objects that the admins can edit. And in there, they can specify things about what the code system looks like, what type it is, and all the validation stuff they like for the code system, if there's some regular expression that the code has needs. So, for example, if I chose my code system to be that, like what a CAS number might look like. If I typed in something that was not a CAS number, and try to register this, tell me that this is, well, let me actually give you let's say that this is a primary code. This does not look like a CAS number. It's not. After I put in what the code system is, and there's some validation rules for where possible for each one of them. Put in one of them that I'm sure of. You can specify what the code type is. So code type is just a general flag we use to try to say what this code is mapped. So the common thing is that for some street numbers, they're actually associated with slightly more granular or slightly less granular version of the substance than you specify. So here it would be the default to say that this code literally corresponds to this concept. But you have something that was like one is like polyethylene glycol, in some that is itself gets a code for this glycol. Whereas the substance we wouldn't tend to have. I think we still do have a polyethylene glycol unit. It's an unspecified ingredient. Yeah, specified ingredient, as it were. But if there was a code linking to that for a specific version of it, you would be able to say that this was a generic or family code. So you can associate directly with a code if there's some direct link that people would have to that code system. And you can put in there. Along with in the admin level definitions of each of these code systems, you can apply how the URL to be built. It turns out the code system, in this case, we just let it default to IT to, I could add as many codes as relevant.
Running of code systems.
Versioning code systems.
Even, there's some private code systems, like there's Swiss Bank in there, and they changed completely their code system. So we would, update it to the new code system. Versioning we have for CAS, we have superseded. We don't religiously capture all these old superseded CAS numbers, but still map to the regular record. But like I said, we will capture the lines for like company codes before they. Sometimes it takes CAS a long time to link the structure to the actual company code, so we would have both of them in there. And the one with the structure would be the primary. The company code would be no structure given. So yeah, there's a versioning. So
I would say that you can be super specific. You're saying there's a code system one versioning.
Yeah, that happened.
You can certainly capture this by the reference. You can say that the reference was accessed at this date for this code system. But there's a version controlled code system rather than code for a code system. At this moment, we don't support that. Yeah. What these red asterisks are, so it's code type, and code system are all required. Everything else is not required.
And one of those features of this data set is the ability to set generic code and actually find the specific records for it. So for example, all the MI file has a particular CAS number that is the standard one that everybody uses, and find that there's 45 or 50 specific records that are described in different types.
Absolutely. So this completes just the general code step, which is one of the typical things you'd have to do, perhaps if you're doing a concept like vegetable oil. Right now, you can see there's no, because this is a concept or a virtual substance, there's no defined information. You'll see all the rest of the information down below. So below, you'll be able to review what your names were, what your references were, associate one of those data elements. Any relationships that you've added or would like to add. Any notes that you'd like to add to be associated with this record. And additional properties for the record. Record or is a public one. All would be accessible and considered releasable. But you could add a protection to say that this is considered to be a private or protected. This applies to the whole record. Each element also has one of those.
Yeah, we have one thing that, unless that flag switch, we don't really say anything about the substance. But, if we flip that switch, and only a couple of us can do that.
So, for instance, in the actual name itself, you could also just say that this name is protected. You can say that each reference is protected. And there is a procedure we tend to use that says if the reference for your thing is protected, then your thing is protected. If that makes sense. So if your data, if you consider the parts to be protected, then this is probably what you're trying to release from that source is probably also protected.
Can you protect parts of a chemical structure?
Not
parts. Okay. So what does that mean?
The reason I asked that is that there was one drug substance that was the firm made the argument that that the numbers were like cells.
Did Cedar buy into that? I think.
People
Well, the problem is in the listing stuff that we're doing, you have to. Right. The Orange Book never specifies. All they care about really is the they don't specify hydration, and it does get into there's going to be a different polymorph and that, but they would then have to, the way the system's set up now and listing, they're going to have to the Unicode for the actual approved drug, they've all listed the actual ingredient. So what, you know, I don't know, I mean, you know. I've had a lot of requests for the actives with companies want to hide the actual, you know, identity. We have to go back and forth on name. You know, they don't want to say what the exact molecular weight is or what the exact degree of substitution is, and so, you know, so we do hide it in that sense. Yeah.
I would say is in this software, any considered to be, this is going to be especially confusing word, any atomic element is considered to be, any data element that's considered to be its own effective, but that would really be splitting that element. So I'm not sure if there technically, actually, to be honest, we could accommodate that because the moieties are broken out into two moieties. You could protect that the moieties are there, but their ratios aren't. But I wouldn't encourage people to do that. I think that'll just get especially confusing. But also, this is an example of a class where I'm sure there's similar other things that you might get into, and to the level of like it must match this Marcouche, but we can't tell you exactly which one it is.
Sometimes we'll release the record, but not release the structural information. For monoclonal antibodies, you know, for some reason, I didn't require them to release the sequence, and so we would still really code for that, but we wouldn't release the sequence. So, you know, just structure. Yeah.
So, just to continue here for a second, I guess if there are any questions people have that popped up.
Especially when you're doing the similarity searches, do you for protected information?
At this moment, all the data that's in there is public currently, and the protected information is really more of a report feature that supports when they're generating lists for other things are using. But in the future, we could allow for user groups to have whichever user logs in with will only see those things that are protected. But it's just a reporting feature that's just there for capturing what level it would be considered. So if you put in information, if you decide that you're going to register information in here and you're all protected, it's not going to do you too much good. You're just telling everyone else who's also in the system that you like this to be protected, which is useful to you behind your own firewall, not that useful for you at Health Canada.
In the future, there will be roles, like I said, at FDA, there's some centers that think the other centers to look at their data, and so we would accommodate that in the system, you know, and even within companies. I mean, I've dealt with companies, and sometimes Neuro doesn't want knowledge to look at their, you know, they try to restrict access to work groups and things like that, and that would be accommodated.
Now, most of the key data that's in this system is also available in National Library of Medicine.
Yeah.
But it's not as rich as this by any means.
Just to continue down the way, if there are any other further questions, please stop me if you have any more.
The flow from registration to code and then code. But the only information I have code, let's say OFG, and the structure. How I can from the beginning, because I structure.
You're register chemical right now?
Yeah,
Well,
chemical, but you have only the code.
Yeah. Well, the
Structure.
The code, though, our identification of a code is that it has to be a code system. So everything has to have a name. If you don't have a name, you can't. Yeah.
So I think I'll get to that into the chemical registration,
Yeah.
which is a secondary part to this very soon.
Yeah.
I guess we may or may not get there.
Okay.
So the code will be a name.
Yes, his name. Yes. Okay. Just show you what I have done.
So just as a quick example here, I mentioned this previously. As soon as I'm done filling these things out, right now I'm just going to export this data and just save it locally. But theoretically, I could then email it to somebody and they could import it in their own laser and see what things look like. And kind of do how it is in the JSON structure looks. If you save file after you click export. get a dialog box that allows you to choose where you want to save the file. The default file name is not a very helpful name. It just says dump. If you use something, you can name whatever you like. This is what we'll call this
and now, them to
or to restart, press cancel. Now, if I were to decide to re-enter the information by into a console record, I can click import, then load file, find oil file, and then it will bring back all the